come and dive into the wonderful world of Glen Scotia whiskey. Now, over the last couple of years, I've tried numerous whiskies from Glen Scotia. Couldn't find anyone that I didn't like. Of course, one of my favorite, the Victoriana, absolutely fantastic. After watching the online Scotch Whisky Awards, which one of them was the Glen Scotia Victoriana, and I just fell in love with it. I fell in love with the flavors, the lightness, the friendliness of the whiskey. So yeah, I've done quite a number of them. If you want to go check, I will put some in the end card. You can also go to my homepage, and as a quick reminder, if you like the videos, please remember to like and subscribe. So tonight, it is part of the double cask series, and it's this one finished, of course, in rum. So ex-bourbon cask, then a short maturation period in ex-rum cask from Guyana. Now, it is a young whiskey. Now, I've did a little bit of digging. Not easy to find, so I'm not even sure if the information that I did find is 100% accurate. But most people suggest that it is maybe a 6 to 8 year old whiskey, so no age statement. Price wise, you're going to pay about €56 for a no age statement whiskey. Quite expensive. It is bottled at 46% ABV, natural color, non-chill filtered. So definitely ticking the boxes, except for me, the price. It seems a little bit excessive for a no-age statement whiskey. So it is a finished whiskey. It is rum cask. It is from Guyana, and they use Guyana Demerara rum casks. Now, I've always struggled to find a rum finish. I did quite a number of reviews of whiskies in a rum cask, and I could never pick out that subtle notes or aromas. So very difficult sometimes. So I really hope that I do pick up the rum cask in this one. Not going to be a long video. It's all about the nosing and tasting. Natural color, non-chill filtered. So 6 years, maybe 6 years and a bit. Very light in color, light straw color. Not a lot of viscosity to it. When I do it a little bit of a twirl, it's just a quick run down the glass and the legs are gone. So not a lot of viscosity to this one. But of course, it's all about the nosing and tasting. Cheers. Now, that does give me a nice smile. It is 46% ABV, even with a little bit of an agitation. With a little bit of an agitation, the first thing that I do note is the youthfulness. That alcohol, that is a little punchy, that little ethanol, a little bit of a nail polish remover note coming out. But once it's settled, and it doesn't take long to settle down, when you get a lovely sweetness coming out, but not a sickening sweet, a overly sweet whiskey. It's a little bit of an aromatic type of sweetness coming out. There's loads and loads of tropical fruit notes coming out. I get a little bit of a vanilla. I get a little bit of a coconut coming out. And then I get a little bit of a pineapple note coming out. But it is not a overly ripe pineapple, maybe still green side. So it is not a kick in your face pineapple, but a nice light pineapple note coming out. Of a mixture with a little bit of that coconut. A little bit of a dried coconut, so also not very strong. There's also a little bit of a light honey note. And for some reason, I get a little bit of a smokiness. Like a, well, very strange note for me. Not every time, but every now and again I get a hint of maybe a light peat, but I think I'm completely wrong on this one. I am 100% convinced. I'm 100% convinced there is no peat in it. But I get a little bit of a briny note, maybe a little bit of a sea breeze note. Maybe that is what it is. It's definitely not a peat, but I get a little bit of a funky note coming out. That alcohol, every time I go back, I need to be very careful. Even at 46% ABV, I get that sharpness, that punchiness, that little spicy note from the alcohol. But just let it settle down to calm its nerves. And of course, if it calms down too much, just give it a little bit of a twirl and it wakes it up again. Pleasant. It becomes a little bit sweeter. When I poured it the first time, I had a little bit of that funkiness, was a little bit too much. That alcohol was a little bit too much. That punchiness, that spiciness of the alcohol for me was a little bit too much. But it settles down quite nice, and I do like the flavors. A little bit of a toffee note coming out. There's a little bit of a caramel note coming out. That sweetness a little bit more elevated. But again, if you tell me this was a rum cask finish, in a blind taste, I would not have guessed that. Maybe I need to try a little bit more rum in the future. But I don't get. Now I get a little bit of a gooseberry. A fresh gooseberry that you just broke open. You get that little gooseberry note. So quite pleasant for me. On the taste, cheers. On the taste, it's sweet, but oaky. And punchy. And hot. And spicy. And oaky, and every time it feels like even after the first sip, the oak is building up already. It's quite an oaky one. Let me just try again. Cheers. It just heats up your mouth. 46%. It feels for me like a 48, maybe even a 50 odd ABV whiskey. It's warm, it's hot, it's spicy, it's oaky, that tannins coming through immediately. It just heats up the mouth. It's almost like a chilly effect that you get. That youthfulness of the alcohol definitely shining through. And once you get past that shock to your mouth, you are left with a sweetness, you are left with a little caramel, you are left with a little bit of a spiciness. You are left with a little bit of a sweetness. And you are left with a tannins, that little bitter note. Not even dark chocolate, maybe espresso type of bitter notes that is left in the end. I would suggest if you don't love a oaky whiskey or a tannin whiskey or bitter whiskey, then smaller sips. Let me just make 100% sure. Cheers. Small sips at a time, for me, is just perfect. Once I go into a bigger sip and drinking a little bit too fast, that oak level just keeps on building up. And I'm not a big fan of very tanniny, very bitter whiskey. But small sips, that's quite a nice one. Now, I think it is a good idea to add just a little bit of water. Just to try and get rid of that harshness of that alcohol, that sharp edges of the alcohol. And that is a little bit off-putting for me. Now I'm just going to put in maybe, well, it is not a lot of whiskey, maybe 20 mils. I'm going to literally put in 3 drops of water. So I'm not going to overwater this one. And funny comment that I got from one of my subscribers, what happens if you overwater? Why don't you proof it up again? Well, that is a bloody good idea. Just add more whiskey and just bring the level up again. Fantastic idea, and why I never thought of it, I don't know. With a little bit of water added. Now, I love the nose on this whiskey. The taste was needs a little bit tweaking for me because of that bitter notes. Now, a couple of drops of water. I'm not 100% convinced that it helped the whiskey. It just toned down a little bit of the nice flavors as well. It did tone down the alcohol harshness, sharpness, but it feels like it lost some of that nice sweet notes that came out. With a little bit of water added, cheers. Now with a little bit of water added, that roughness, that sharpness, that in your face alcohol, youthful alcohol note is starting to disappear. And I think a little bit of water did wonders for this whiskey. So that bitter notes definitely going down. Nice caramel notes coming out. Although it's only a couple of drops of water, I can still feel the high ABV. So it didn't bring the alcohol level down much. There's a lot less tannins for me on the taste. Little bit more sweetness, a little bit more vanilla, a little bit more toffee notes coming out. And now even on the nose, I can feel the water is lifting out that aromas and just pushing out the nice flavors. So I think a little bit time with the water also helps. The initial one, it was not that a big difference. But now, with a little bit of time to get that water to separate the molecules, it does make a difference for me. So put a little bit of water in, give it a little bit of lots of vanilla and toffee notes appearing now. So definitely something that likes a little bit of water, that brings out that little sweetness and get rid of that harsh tones of that 46% very young whiskey. The only problem that I have with this whiskey is the price. Now I did look online. In the UK they talk about £49 here in my online stores here in Europe. I saw them advertised for €56. That's a little bit much for me to pay for a young whiskey like that. Now I know it's 46% ABV, natural color, non-self filter. The Glen Scotia name adds another €4-5. But I'm not convinced that I will buy another bottle like this. I know it's a little bit harsh, but for me the prices are getting a little bit crazy. Well, what do you think? Which Glen Scotia is the best expression for you? Are you willing to pay €56 for a whiskey that is maybe 6-7 years old? Well, please leave a comment, and of course, as usual, please remember to like and subscribe, and I see you next time. Cheers.